The Hardcore Record Podcast, episode 20 with Jenny Wu. I asked Jenny to join me on the podcast because I always saw what she stood for and what an inspiration she is. Trailblazing new ways and tearing down walls, fighting oppression on every front within society and the underground. So have those conversations about change at shows, at a coffee house or bar or pub with friends, and make some new friends. You never know what could become if the right spark gets said. And go check out her music, her lyrics, and go to one of her shows and listen to her voice of voy.
Hello, Elliot.
Hey, hello, how are you?
Great.
Great.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Let me get rid of this. First off, how are you today? You good?
I'm doing really well. A little bit of a rough start this morning. I was out till 3 and then, had to wake up at like 6:30. And yeah, it's just been kind of going ever since. So 6 cup of coffee and I'm rocking and rolling.
Yeah, crash early tonight, won't you?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm actually going to go see Fear. They're playing here tonight in Ottawa, and I was super shocked to see the announcement because, leaving, he must be like 79 years old right now, but they're
Yeah.
still touring, and I was like, I have so many regrets for those bands that I just didn't see, so I really want to capture like everything that I can right now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That's part of my goal in life now is to see the bands I never got to see. Like I never got to see Agnostic Front. And,
What?
yeah, and I just saw them like about last month. But then I had another show before that and another show after that, all during the week. And but I just toughed it out, and it was all right.
Power
So
through.
yeah,
Yeah, when I was like a lot younger, I lived in Edmonton, and Motorhead was playing at the arena, and my friend got me a ticket, but I was working at Costco, and they wouldn't like give me that day off, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to lose my job, but I also really want to go to the show, and then I was like, you know what, I'll see him again, and Lemmy died,
yeah.
and I lost my job anyways, so you know what I mean, just priorities in life.
I know. I hear you. All right, sounds good. Well, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much
And
for the opportunity.
yeah. My first question I'm going to start with is, I guess, let's go way back, and I guess your first introduction into music, and I guess how you got into playing guitar, but I guess, and then your first introduction into punk, like going back and like, what was that first moment that spark that lit the spark, basically?
Yeah. So like I'm a kid born in the 80s, like a strong millennial, I guess. And at that time before the internet, you either had to have a brother or sister who was into punk,
Yeah.
like as to be like a gateway, or you just had to get really lucky somehow in a miraculous way because it's not like they were playing like Exploited on the radio or something like that.
Yeah.
So my sister absolutely is not into any of that stuff, and I mean, like I always felt like I loved the heavy sound, and I really didn't like mainstream, like that genuine, like pre-adolescent angst kind of thing. So you get into like alternative music, like Metallica or whatever, and then yeah, one day yeah, they played Rancid on the radio, Ruby Soho in the '90s, and that was my gateway into punk because I just love the hooks. I love the feeling. Like it just felt like anything could happen in that song. And it was like that
Hmm.
kind of liberty, rebellion, and like fresh attitude that just sparked something inside of me. And since that day, you kind of like buy the record, read through the credits. Oh, they credited Billy Bragg. Who's that? And you buy Back to Basics. And then you look, so it's kind of like the spider web effect.
Yep.
And then I finally got to high school and met like new people who weren't part of my old small pond, and they were into like other stuff like Coxbar or like Vice Squad, and I was like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
And yeah, and then you think you know everything, and then all of a sudden you realize you know nothing, and then you feel like you know nothing, and then you know everything. It's kind of like that weird thing, but in terms of how I started to play music, well, I am like a child of a Chinese immigrant, so you have to play piano. That's like part of the
Okay.
deal. Like you have to grow up playing piano, otherwise you're nothing. So they started me on like classical piano when I was 3 years old, and I actually did like all of the theoretical exams and went through like 10 years of piano lessons.
Oh
So I
wow.
had like a really strong like feeling about musical theory and like execution, right? Like phrasing and harmonies and melody and stuff. But of course, when you get into punk, you don't want to be like, oh, I can play Mozart. So I was like, I need to play something really cool. I bought a drum kit with, my meager salary at that time. And then I realized, like, oh man, if you're a drummer, you have to bring the most gear to all the gigs, and you
Yep.
have no glory, and you have like a lot of injuries, like you know what I mean, like all those rim shots and stuff. Like my hands were bleeding, and I was like, I just gotta play guitar because that looks cool. And I switched to guitar, and then it became like a lot easier songwriting and stuff. But yeah, I really wanted to be in a punk band, and that was the catalyst for switching over to guitar. But I had a lot of background that helped me from there. Yeah. And I guess other than that, like in terms of playing punk, you get into high school, you start to meet like-minded people, and then you're like, oh my God, we should start a band.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Nice. So well, Rancid kind of is like a borderline like punk and oi, pretty much.
Mm.
So, but what would be a band that you said will basically introduce you to the oi culture that you were like, okay, this is different, like
Yeah. So I will say that Rancid, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people who are, jealous and haters and stuff like that. But truly, like Rancid is like one of the best gateway bands that you can have into punk because it's true that they do have a lot of Oi and Caribbean music inside their tunes. Like I think that
yeah,
Outcome the Worlds was like my generation's London Calling, and the fact that it was like a good mix of like Caribbean roots and punk rock, and you had like all those songs like Black and Blue that like referenced skinheads and rude boys and stuff. So if you want to learn about like the tree of punk, there were like so many branches that came out of Rancid, and I am so grateful that they did amazing covers and they also did amazing collaborations because from that you learn a lot of other bands. And I think that the bands that like I would say are like the origin of Oi, like Cockney Rejects or Last Resort, I actually got through Rancid from references.
okay, nice. I actually remember a time I grew up in New Jersey, right? So I'm walking down the boardwalk with some friends, and there used to be that big love hate with Rancid, and this guy was wearing a shirt, and I don't remember the name of the band, but it was some like old anarchist punk band, and it had an Outcome the Real Wolves on it, and it was around that time, and it was against Rancid at that time. And I was like, and you just reminded me that there was that moment of like a few years when that album came out where people were like, oh, this is junk, but
Yeah.
it's really stood the test of time,
Elliot, that is always like the way, man. Like you look at like Elvis or Little Richard or whatever. Oh, this is never gonna last. That's
Yeah.
stupid. And then it's like a turning point in culture. And I think that Rancid deserves all the success that they've had. They're an
Yeah.
incredible band that came up from the bottom. You know, what I mean, I was always a big Op Ivy fan. I'm a huge Tim Timebomb fan. I will
Hmm.
love and thank Rancid till the day I die. And I really think that anybody who doesn't like them is just trying to prove something. And I don't know what that is because we
Yeah.
should just grow up.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Gotcha. Good deal. Good deal. Um, so let's see. Did you always, or all right, let's say, how did you start wanting to go into the acoustic guitar and just doing the acoustic on stage?
Yes, so that's the thing. I mean, when you listen to like classic Oi, it's like I would say the epitomal track would be like Chaos by the Foreskins. It's like raw, it's real, it's distorted, it's like, that kind of the taste of like iron in your mouth after you bite your lip. Like that's the grit of Oi. And I really wanted to emulate that when I was a kid. And I had played in a few punk bands, but then I, really wanted to become a skinhead and I want to play an Oi band. But like, at that time in the early 2000s, there was not like a lot of skinheads in my city. And, like everywhere, even today, they were all men, right? And
Yeah.
I like auditioned for a couple bands, and they just said like, "There's no way because we're like trying to be serious, you know, and we don't need chicks in the band. There's no such thing as a skinhead girl. There's only a skinhead's girl," and all that kind of stuff. And I felt really upset that I just couldn't be a part of that, you know. And I had an acoustic guitar in my apartment, and I just started writing my own songs. And then I decided, like, hey, you know what? I'd rather do this alone than not do it at all. And I started doing open mic
Nice.
nights and put out like a demo on MySpace. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Life's too short to not do what you want to do. And like, I'd rather do this like stripped down, a lyrically based, oi adjacent music than not do it. And I think that that was sort of the origin story of like acoustic oi.
Nice. Yeah. I remember years ago, I think my kids were real young, two girls, and then I found you and what you were doing, and I'm like, this is amazing inspiration, you know. And my kids are like 4, and I'm like, listen to this.
Aw,
I still do it to this day, you know, with
I love
like,
that.
yeah, yeah. It was a different take. It was fresh. It's you're an inspiration, really. I Yeah,
Oh, thanks, Elliot. I mean, at that time and still today, you know, there's like a lot of contestation about it because, you know, in the skinhead movement, there's a lot of like anti-hippie sentiment and like we don't want to have like real feelings other than anger and hate and like, you know, don't you know, bring your kumbaya into like a scene that's fundamentally based on like class war and aggression and stuff.
yeah,
And I get that, you know, like everybody has a right to their own opinion. But I also think that like in order for music to evolve, it has to evolve, right? And everybody in this planet has a right to play what they want to play. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
don't have to listen to it, but we all have a right to exist. So yeah, I mean, I got a lot of flack from it, but also there's part of it that I still truly love to this day, you know, and I think that you can have that gritty lo-fi um, distortion that really captures one emotion inside the human heart, but like also the humanity of a single voice and a single guitar is something brave and real as well.
yeah. Nice. Um, how about we start with I guess so. You have 2011, and you have your first album, like Alberta Rose, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then you did Proud of Every Scar in 2016. Is that when you started to travel the world and do
Yeah.
all that?
Well, so basically, I had come out with this like 4 track like um demo, which I actually, funnily enough, recorded on a 4 track in my basement. And I printed like all those CDs, you know, at the time you could print them with like labels and stuff.
Yep.
And so I was going around like mailing them to like all the record labels and like, you know, leaving them in record shops and, you know, that kind of optimism that you have when you're like 19, like, I'm gonna be big, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, in the MySpace days, you could have like music on your profile as well. So
Yep.
I put my demos directly on MySpace. And for like young people who don't know what that is, it was like a mix of Bandcamp and Facebook. And this actual record label from Germany, which was female owned and operated, she reached out to me and said, like, hey, you know what? I had never heard something like this. Let's just run with it. Like, I'm going to give you like $300 and you can make an album. And, you know, if it does well, then we'll sign like a 5 album deal. And I was like, oh, this is my chance, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. And like coming out with Alberta Rose was just a treacherous experience. I learned a hell of a lot, but it was just like painful. It was like dragging a bag of boulders up a mountain. I mean, I chose everything in the wrong way. You know, I basically wanted to track everything myself on a multi-track, but then I also wanted it to be analog, so I had to get other musicians on the floor, and then like I chose friends over musicians, you know what I mean? So everything was like a bit sloppy and weird and needed to be like edited. And then, you know, it was tape, it was recorded on tape. So you can actually edit anything. And so you just have retakes and retakes and retakes. And it took me like 3 years to make that album. And I still don't like it. I mean, there's some good parts of it, but like I can't listen to it just because like I would have done it completely different if it were today. After Alberta Rose, I came up with another album, My Revenge, and that was an album that I recorded in like
Oh,
2012, 13, and I was living in Moscow at that time, and so because I was based in Russia, I was able to do like a lot more gigs like in Asia and in Europe, and I started a band in Moscow that was able to record with me, and like those guys were just like machines, like dedicated, true musicians, and like we just went into the studio and just hammered it out in like 3 weeks, and that was when I realized like, oh yeah, you know what, this can definitely be better. And after that, I did Proud of Every Scar. I just kind of changed the lineup because you know you move on, you meet new people, and I think it's like Proud of Every Scar that just like concretized like the sound that I really wanted. And when you find like what works, you just go with it. And I really love working with the guys.
nice, nice. Yeah, that's the album I think I heard first. That got me into it. So, um, and then you did like this Holy Flame project too, right? Was
Yeah.
that something different, or is that part of the Proud of Every Scar album?
So what happened is that I had released Proud of Every Scar in 2014, 2015. Was when I recorded it, and then I moved to Rome, and so I needed to like start a new band, and I kind of paired up with some guys who were kind of near Milan, and we started gigging a lot, like as a live band. And even though they didn't play on the album Proud of Every Scar, we played a lot of those songs live.
Okay.
And then we wanted to have something that wasn't just Jenny Wu because, like, you know, obviously those other guys were artists as well. So the idea was to start as Jenny Wu's Holy Flame and then like migrate it to just the Holy Flame and then carry on as a band. But the band unfortunately had like a lot of internal fissures and we never really continued after like 2018.
Okay.
And yeah, and I enjoyed it a lot. We played a ton of gigs and we had a great time, but like there was just like not enough like I guess human connection between the members of the band to like make it last.
Yeah, I got you. Um, so then that's right. And then I caught wind of what you were doing with this, I guess, Athena project.
Yeah,
And when you were posting about that stuff, introduced me to a lot of different artists. One of those bands was the Northquakes,
yeah.
which I still listen to. Um, how did that come about? Just
So I will say, Northquakes is an incredible band, and for those listeners who don't know about them, they're like a soul band based in Finland, and they have just such a beautiful sound. I mean, it's something like Northern Soul, but with a little bit of a more modern production. And those tunes can carry you through the worst days of your life and also, you know, bring the shine to even the best ones. The
I
singer
agree
is,
with that. Yep.
yeah, it's so good, right?
Yeah.
Seahorses and all those tracks is amazing. And the singer of that band is Elisa, and I did a bunch of tours with her, like shows in Finland, maybe 10 years ago. Also, Skinhead Girl, an amazing woman, and just an incredible singer-songwriter as well. She was doing a lot of acoustic music too, and I feel so grateful that I was able to see her live as a solo artist. So that's an aside.
Yeah.
Anyways, with
Yep.
the Athena project, as we know, like the oi scene is very male dominated, and I was so tired of just the gatekeepers and like the double standards and like living in this kind of weird pseudo reality where everybody thinks it's normal, but you know it's totally fucked. Like, you
Yeah.
know, for example, like you can go to a backstage, you talk with like the guys in other bands, and they're like, "Hey, what's the worst gig you've ever played?" And they're like, "Oh man, like I played this gig and I had to like sleep on a dirty mattress and like we didn't get paid and like the tire broke on my van." And it's like, "Oh yeah, that sucks." And you know, nobody ever asked women like what was the worst gig you ever played? And like almost every single female musician, worst gig I ever played was attempted rape. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
a completely different reality. Like, and there's no space to talk about that because like it's such a male dominated industry, and like even to have the privilege or the right to stand on stage, you get subjugated to like so much critique, like about your body, about your sexuality, about anything that people can kind of dig into to bring you down. And I never knew why that was. I think it's kind of stems back to the original reason why I was never allowed to play in oi bands in my hometown. It's just this idea that this, like in this genre, these people are important. And this is what it is. It's about working class, it's about physical strength, it's about the fight, and you're never going to get it, and you don't belong here. And that like attitude prevails in so many subtle and actual ways that, you know, we could spend hours talking about it. And I was trying to talk about these issues with so many people, but it's hard when they can't relate and they don't understand, because they'll say, well, for me, I mean, it's so easy and it's like really fun. So I don't know why you have to be problematic or whine. And it's like, man, I like, you know, I had that feeling like I've been doing this for like 20 years. I put my time and I played my 1,000 gigs. I released my 7 albums, but I know I will never be a headliner. You know what I mean? In every festival around the world, the headliner is always men. You know what I mean? And it just pisses me off. And eventually I found kind of a platform amongst women, and I started, you know, this article and fanzine called Boot Girl Power. And through that, I met a lot of people who felt the same way as me. And I said, you know, like writing about it amongst ourselves gives a sense of community, but we should also do something like to send a message outward, you know? And I really wanted to do a project where the engineers, the mastering, the tracking, the artists, and the songwriters were all women. And it took a lot of work because, like, you know, the people were based in like the UK, Germany, Spain, Scotland. I was living in France. It was like, you know, kind of like herding cats to put it together. But it was one of the best experiences I've had, and I think that all of the people who are involved in that project are incredibly talented musicians, and it was an honor for me to work with them. We released one EP, and the idea is that it's a project. It's not, you know, a band.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I just wanted that to kind of be like a smoke signal to maybe, like, you know, get other women interested and also to keep the conversation going, you know?
Yes. Um, Let me think here a minute because I do want to comment on everything that you were saying. I believe that that project does promote that message. I was raised by my mom and my two sisters. I hold on, something you said. So you have to realize I've realized as I've gotten older, as a man, yeah, it is easy, especially as a white man in America. It's easy for me. But being around my daughters, my wife, my mom, my two sisters, I realize what it's like for women. And I've taken a lot of time over my life to see that. And where do I want to go with this? I think men are just constantly raised where they fear a loss of control in a way.
Mm.
And it's the only thing that I can kind of come up with that stems from. And I see it all over the world nowadays. It's still a fear. And it's like people just live off of this fear. Like, why? And you have an ego. Like, why wouldn't you lift someone else up? You know,
Yeah.
to me,
Um,
that's normal. That's easy for me to think that. But people aren't taught that. They aren't taught that other side at all. You know,
I really appreciate that, Elliot, and I also think it's so amazing that you're a girl dad and that you have taken time for self-reflection and empathy. I think the issue is that we're all socialized to stay in our lane. You know what I mean? And a lot of men are socialized to have that role of, you know, whether we want to say gender is fluid and we should all be progressive and everything. There's still a lot of like rigid norms, and a lot of male toxicity comes from this idea of you have to be alpha, you have to be a provider, you have to be strong. And probably that's where like the fear of loss of control is embedded. But also as women, we're always taught like you have to make everybody else feel comfortable. You have to
Mm-hmm.
serve the needs of others and accept invisible labor under the banner of love, you know? And it's really difficult to unpack that. But when we look at most social situations, in the scene, outside of the scene, you know, you can have a party, and if the man is at the barbecue making the meat, he's the cook. But it's the women who bring all of the side dishes, send the events, you know, set the tablecloth, organize the activities for the kids, and do all the cleaning up after. And
Yep.
yet, it was like Jonathan who had the barbecue. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's kind of just like an analogy for how it is. Like through the history of the world, you know, Einstein or like Jean-Paul Sartre or all of these incredible men who are able to like rise to great heights. They were able to do so because they didn't have to fucking do their laundry or
Yep.
cook or meal plan or like raise their children. Like the division of labor is such that women's labor is mostly invisible, and
Mm-hmm.
we're meant to feel like it should always stay that way so that we don't have to change the balance of power. But we need to talk about these things and to bring them to the light because they're so normalized that nobody would even question them. And that's what I really wanted to do with the Athena project and what I want to do for the rest of my life because I also have a daughter and I don't want her to ever feel like her work, her existence is less.
So true. Yes. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah.
And I really think that like in the music scene, I've talked to so many you know, male artists and stuff, and it's just like insane this idea of like, well, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Or like this other attitude of like, well, she is only on this record label. She only created this music video. She only released this album because she's a chick. And everybody is, you know, and the
Yep.
double standard of like being the victim of sexism double time, it's incredible. Like I think there is a huge cataclysmic gap between realities here. It's like the fact that we can all live in one city, but some of us are homeless and some of us are living on the hill. Like we don't live in the same city. That's not the same reality.
Yeah.
And I think we need to talk to each other as humans and not, you know, just assume that whatever we've lived can be applied to everybody else.
Yes. When I go to shows nowadays, I will say the one thing that I find missing is those tables from the bands or from somebody else with books, zines, information on,
Mm.
class war, racism, sexism, all of it. I grew up in that time when every show had that. It was there. We were learning about it and we were taught about it. That's not there anymore. I don't
Yeah.
see that really at all. And
I
I
think a lot
wonder,
of that got warehoused in the internet. Like we just assume that people are going to find it.
yeah, yeah. And then that's when like the scene would like splits in a way, and then you get like all these people that you're like, what are you talking about? Like this isn't what it is. This isn't how it is. Like no, we're here to support each other and to include everybody. So
Yes.
yeah,
And that's one thing like I fundamentally believe in if you were going to have a revolution, it has to be in counterculture. It has to be in a subculture because mainstream culture will never turn itself over on itself.
no,
And for
yeah,
me, punk rock was about this vision of even the most humble person has a voice and a reason. And that's what I loved about the skinhead movement as well. Like you can come from the most humble origins, you can have a shit job, you can have no credit in society, and yet you can take back the power, start a band, and record an album on your own means, on your own dime. You don't need a massive record label, you don't need connections, you just do it out of spirit and out of love. And that is the great equalizer. And what I really don't understand is how punk and oi subculture can just mirror the unfortunate power dynamics of mainstream society without questioning itself. Because we can do better. We should be better. If anything is going to change, it has to start with us.
agreed. Well said. I can't say that any better. That is definitely a message that needs to be said more and more nowadays. Yeah.
Thanks, Elliot. And if I can say that, like by extension as well, I mean, the thing I always found like a very ironic about the skinhead scene. I mean, it sounds like I hate the skinhead scene. I love it. I love it.
No,
That's why I'm
but
saying this
I
stuff.
understand where you're coming from. I do. I get it.
But it's very like anti-racist, which is why we all love it, and it's like the skinhead history has come from such an interesting genealogy of music, and black music, and also the checkered past of like having Caribbean music injected into white class or working class society. You know what I mean? That
Hmm.
initial multiculturalism, and also unfortunately with like DNP connections or like neo-Nazi connections, everybody wants to make a really strong line against not being racist, not being a Nazi, and so it's extremely vocal about being not racist, anti-racist. But I find so much of it to be performative, because you go to like these gigs where they have like, I'm anti-racist on the flyer, anti-fascist, and 100% of the people at the show are white, and
Yeah.
it's like I spent so much of my time, my life, being the only like brown face in the room, and it's like, man, this sucks. Like, I think if we really want to like appropriate other people's music, or like make this about the kids, like, shouldn't we have more diversity? And what good is anti-racism if we're not inclusive? And I think that being anti-racist isn't just being not racist. It's about meeting other people, including their voices, listening to them, and also being true and genuine allies in that struggle. So I really think, like, as a person of color myself, there are like a whole other realm of like double standards and like weird fetishization and tokenism, and it hurts and it's brutal. And there's like too few of us to like, actually start like a huge revolution in the scene. But just from talking to other people who've always been that one face in the crowd, everybody's had the common experience of being like microaggressed, like, where are you from? Or like, oh, hey, you're black, take a picture with me so everyone knows I'm not racist. That kind of stuff. And it's like, man, like we got to do better.
Yeah. Um, I think people need to say it more.
Yeah.
Say I'm anti-racist. Say I'm anti-fascist. Literally speak about it more and more. I work with people and they're like, "Oh, Brian, you look like a Nazi skinhead." I said, "Well, first off, nothing wrong with it, but I'm not a skinhead, and and I tried to be in my younger years, but I was like, you guys just don't even understand. So just stop talking to me. I literally have anti-racist tattoos all over me. Like, just stop." But I'll tell you a story. So
Mm.
I grew up in a racist town in New Jersey, and
Well,
so I grew up with people saying the N word and thought it was normal. And I never said it. It wasn't nothing that came out of my mouth or anything like that, but I heard it all the time. So then I met my wife. Well, not my wife at that time, but who became my wife. And she comes down to she lived out near the city. I lived near like the Pine Barrens, right? And then, so there's plenty of non-racist people, but there's plenty of people that were just racist. And there's plenty of white people that would use racial slurs and tell racial jokes. But they weren't serious about it. They weren't like, I'm racist. Very, very odd. I never really unpacked all that. But my point is that she came down maybe like a handful of times in like a year and a half before I moved out. The third time, that was it. But she made me realize, or she was able to get me to step back and be like, this is wrong. Like, I know you don't see it,
mm.
but it's wrong. I was like, yeah, I know it's wrong. She's like, no, you need to come out to where I live and let me show you. She lived down near Philly. And it was eye opening. And, it was only a matter of time before I left that town, and it was the best decision I ever made. I still have friends back there and everything. But where am I going with this? So, in my early years, junior, senior year, high school, like I was trying to be a skinhead and didn't really work out. I met a skinhead and had him come down to my house one time because we had a party house, and he came in with a screwdriver shirt, and
Oh my God.
he literally had like a swastika tattoo on his stomach, and it was from the old days. And you know I'm like, well, why isn't it covered up? And, you know, never really was an answer for it, you know. But I was like, that was it. You know, like I grew up with it being convoluted. I grew up with a friend who is a skinhead, still a skinhead to this day. You know, not racist, nothing like that. Where am I going? I think I'm just rambling.
I think maybe, Elliot, what you're saying is like a lot of times when we are saturated in a certain thing, we think it's normal until we're shown like a better alternative. And like in the skinhead scene, like a lot of people are brutes and they just focus on like one dimension of what skinhead is. I've known a lot of those skinheads myself that started as Nazis and, you know, just became normal and good human beings as they
Yep.
grew up, right?
Yep.
I don't think that we can like necessarily like blame people for their past, especially if they've done the work to
No.
become better.
Yep.
But I do think like, you know, I've known a lot of people with, you know, skullhead or screwdriver, brutal attack tattoos and stuff like that. And it's like, man, you're like 55. You've had a lot of years to cover that up. And if you don't believe in it anymore, why are you repping it? I find that incredibly insulting and like not cool. I think if you really want to change, just do it 100%. On the other
Yes.
hand, I think of these days, like there's very few people who are just like, "Hey, hi there. Like my name is Paul and I'm a white supremacist." You know what I mean? Like that's not the face of being like a Nazi today. Like being a racist today is a lot of words wrapped around an idea that's fundamentally racist. Like they're never going to come out and
True.
say I'm racist, but they will believe in like segregated, subsidized housing or, you know, segregated education systems,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, they will not invite people around that they don't think are human. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very subtle. And let's be honest, most people, they're like a little bit racist. And it's really uncomfortable to say that. And I'm sorry, like to say it myself, but like when you really dig into people, human psyches and the way that they've categorized others and the way that they kind of see the world, like that racism in popular culture sort of gets saturated inside of us. And I think that doing the work and like really thinking about what racism is and how to be an ally or an anti-racist person, it's like a lifelong work.
Yes, you have to have the talks. And what I've really learned over the last couple of years is if something comes up wherever I'm at, you and you hear something, you have to say something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you don't want to get into like a crazy situation, but like I deal with it at work a lot, you know, and
Mm.
I have to say it. I have to go back at the person and I have to explain to them, no, you know, like don't talk like that. This is
Yeah.
why, you
Speak
know.
up.
Yeah, that's what we've learned in this subculture all my
And
life. Be
I
loud.
also be loud and also like that the need for justice. Like
Mm-hmm.
people who have been done wrong deserve the fight for justice
Yeah,
and the avenue for justice. And whatever justice looks like for them is valid, you know?
yeah,
So it's tough and it's hard. And, you know, we all kind of tend to like group around people who are a lot like us. But like, I challenge anybody listening to just reach out to somebody that you wouldn't normally be friends with because you can learn a lot. And that's what we're here for in this life.
yeah. Especially within this scene, I feel like
Yeah.
we need more unity than ever before. And
Mm.
yeah,
So
so
on that note, actually, I'm going to segue, but
yeah,
on that note, I noticed, you know, in the prep notes we talked about One Tribe. So that's the latest album that came out, and
yes,
that is exactly the message. Like we need more unity now than ever before, and the title track One Tribe is exactly that. Like wherever you come from, you're here now, and that's what counts. Like I'm against the gatekeeping. I'm against, you know, exclusionism. Like we are all here for the same reason, like to have a good time, to do something meaningful, and to like live our lives and to live a life of dignity and of joy, you know?
yep,
So that's where One Tribe comes from. I recently released like a music video with a song, and the music video is on the theme of like motherhood. It's also on the theme of like showcasing more of a global skinhead scene, and also like a lot of cultures and faces that maybe people don't associate with the skinhead scene. A lot of the clip was filmed in Malaysia with, a lot of skinhead women with hijab, and I wanted to show that like no matter what you think is this scene, you don't own it. We're all a part of it, and we're all a family. So let's
Yep.
just stick together now more than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Nice. Yeah, we'll get to that too. So after the Athena project, you have another band. We did two other bands, right? So Rebels Rule
Yeah,
and Choices, but Choices you
yeah,
still do, right? So
yes. So Rebels Rule is it kind of like started as a joke band
hmm
because I wanted to kind of get past like a lot of the prejudice of like, oh, I'm not gonna like this, it's Jenny Wu or whatever. And we recorded like an EP using like reductive analog technology, like, and we released it in Cantonese, sung in Cantonese, and also under a like label and a name that actually used to be a band that never released anything. So Rebels Rule, the you know first title track, Rebels Rule, was released as something that was a re-release that had like in Imaginary World been released initially in 1976. And it's funny because we released like, the track, and a lot of people like, in the comments were like, oh, I remember when my dad owned this album and like all that kind of stuff. We released it on April 1st, and it got like a lot of traction because people were like, oh my God, I remember this band from the 70s. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, I'm an exclusive vinyl collector, and I lost my copy. And so I'm going to rebuy the reissue. And it was just like funny, right? Because
yeah,
it was kind of, the facade was like a Chinese all girl glam band. And then the single actually had so much success that we were invited to do a whole album by the record label, but it's only ever been a studio band. We've never played anything live.
hmm
And it's kind of like supposed to be like a Judah or Mud or Slade, like adjacent kind of rock and roll glam project. And I love it. I love those tunes. Like, I think they're some of the best songs I've ever written. But it's over now, and it was
yeah.
fun while it happened.
Cool.
Um, the Choices is a punk band that I started in 2018, 2019 when I was living in Paris. And the thing is, I played a lot in the oi scene. And I just wanted to do something different. Like, I really wanted to be, in the punk scene, like a bigger pool, and like also to get like some more oxygen. And I always loved 77 punk. Like, I mean, like the Clash or like Slaughter and the Dogs, like
Yeah.
the Nips. Those bands like
Oh,
were
the
like,
Nips. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that was like my like Cheerios and the milk of life, and I wanted to do something like that. And we kind of started off like really influenced by the Undertones. We did like Undertones covers, and we kind of now we've played together, I guess it would say like 6 or 7 years. We released two albums. We're actually just finishing recording our third album. We did EP, and we've done a lot of touring around the world, and it's still going. So
Nice. Nice. Um, how about some of the collaborations you ended up doing over the years? I know you did one with Jeff from the Cockney Rejects and um, Evil Conduct there, or Han. How did those kind of come about? Was it just from your travels, or was it something that you were working on? You had an idea, or yeah, just how
yeah.
did it come about?
Um, so like, this is kind of like a weird thing that I have, come to experience in life. When you are really truly great, there's no need to hate. Like, people who are truly who they are, successful and authentic, they are inviting, and they want to encourage people and the next generation. And,
Yep.
there's a lot of like this kind of gatekeeping or like negativity in the skinhead subculture. But when you get to like the OGs, like for example, like I did like a bunch of shows with Business and Mickey Fitz, or like I had the pleasure of doing, like singing with like Roy Pierce in The Last Resort on a stage a couple times. And like, obviously Jeff Turner, he's like a gem, and like Han as well. Like these OGs, they have no insecurity about who they are and what they can accomplish, and they're nothing but like supportive and open to new artists. I find that it's more like the bands that are like in the middle, like they're still trying to be something, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of tend to like squash others down. And so it's been a really interesting trajectory in my life because like I played with a lot of bands and I, met a lot of people and stuff, but nobody has been as like welcoming and like supportive as the OGs of Oi. And it's ironic and it's funny to say that, but like that generation has been the most open to collaborating with me. And I, I don't come from like any connections. Like I wasn't like born in the scene. I don't have like a parent who like plays away or whatever. I just like kind of just started when I was a kid and like send out tapes and stuff. And so I never would have dreamed of saying like, oh, like one day I'll just sing a Cockney Rejects song with Jeff Turner in an English pub, or like one
Yeah.
day, Marco from Classic Criminality is going to ask me to write him some songs, or like, I wrote a couple of tunes on the Lot Evil Conduct album. I never would have thought like, oh yeah, one day, but it happened organically and also through just like a lot of grit, because like, you know, I'm nobody, but it doesn't hurt to ask. So
Yeah.
with Jeff Turner, I just said like, man, I love the album Unforgiven. That song is just the gateway to the truth, and it's beautiful. Would you be open to doing like a piano duet version of it? And I know it sounds fucking crazy. And he's like, I'm down. I'm
Nice.
free on Thursday. And you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, cool. Or,
Yeah.
like same thing with Roy Pierce, or Han from Evil Conduct. It's like these guys, they don't care about cred or like all of those like weird banal sort of like flaky things that people worry about. They worry about the music, and I just so grateful that I had the opportunity to collaborate with them, and I love their music. They're an inspiration for me, and so being able to like bask in their light was something incredible.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. That's a reason why all that stuff stands the test of time all these years. You know,
Yeah. And
it's
for what it's worth too, like a lot of bands like, they kind of reach out to me from like El Salvador or like Malaysia or Indonesia and stuff, and like they're kind of like younger band, they're starting out and they're like, "Oh, hey, do you want to like do this feat with me?" And I always say yes. Like unless obviously the song is like, you know, kind of like sketchy politically or whatever, like I wouldn't do that. But
yeah.
or the
Yeah.
band or whatever. But like 99.9% of the time it's just like, "Yeah, I'll do that." Like whatever it is, like your live off the floor like tape album from like, you know, Bandung, Indonesia, yeah, I'll sing on that. I'll play some guitar, whatever. Because like that's what we're here to do. We're here to share and collaborate. And every song I've ever like worked with on somebody, I learned something from it. Because if you just play your own material and you only play what you write, you're always going to have your own phrasing, your own progressions, your own understanding of like melodic, like synchronization. But when
Hmm.
you working with something that somebody else has written, that's where you can really grow, right?
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Nice. Um, what is sorry, a second. What would be one of your favorite artists, or what are you listening to like right now lately? Last like couple weeks or so.
All right.
What's
So
what's on your playlist?
whenever I get asked this album, like it's so easy to like fall into the classics because like of course everybody wakes up and puts on like Cox Bar or something like that, and everybody knows Cox Bar and they're like a religion, and like it makes a lot of sense because they're just incredible.
Yeah.
So obviously like I listen to the standard playlist of like amazing punk, right?
Hmm.
But what I like to talk about in interviews is new bands, because yesterday is yesterday and it will always be, but like tomorrow is tomorrow, you know what I mean? And I always like love seeing new bands on stage. I always show up to the show in time to see all the openers, and I always try to support them at the merch table or like have a chat with them. And
Yeah.
there's some new bands out there that are blowing my mind. So if I could mention a couple here, just to name drop, like I
Go
will
ahead.
say again, Northquake's incredible band. Everybody should check them out. They're so good.
Yes.
Um, I also saw last night this band called Over the Hill, and they are a Montreal-based oi band, but they have like a huge legacy behind them. Like all of these guys have been playing for more than 30 years. It's a new band on the theme of like the paradox of growing old in a youth subculture. So they have like a lot of tunes about like skinheads with sciatica and like, geriatric pogoing, and like a lot of it is like poking fun of like getting older, but it also is like speaking a huge truth to a lot of us, which is that, we have nothing to prove. There's humor in humanity.
Yeah.
And there's also, it's kind of like an anti-gatekeeping thing as well, because it's like, who are we to prevent the next generation from coming in? Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I I love that band. They're really powerful and they're so funny, and I would recommend anybody to grab the album Older Not Wiser. It's so good. Um, a band that kind of blew me away this summer. I was touring in France with the Choices, and we played with this band called Radical Kitten, and it's a three-piece punk band that's like, I guess the a lot of people would sort of classify them under the genre of queer punk, which is a great genre, but I also think that queer artists shouldn't just be like pigeonholed into just playing like queer festivals or queer, you know, comps or whatever, because they're
Yeah.
just like a punk band. They're an amazing punk band. And lyrically, also technically, they're incredibly interesting and fresh. So I would highly recommend that for sure. Um, Other than that, like I always really truly try to support female artists.
Hmm.
So, and putting women to the front. I really like this local band in town called Passenger Princess. They're based in Ottawa, Ontario. It's a I would say like fifth generation Riot Girl band. Definitely worth checking out. They're raw, they're real, and there is something in there for everybody. Not just women, but also like the allies of women. And so
Yep.
it's incredibly powerful. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's it. But I could talk about it forever. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I understand. Um, what is a what's one of your favorite pieces of vinyl that you own, or name a couple, or
yeah. So I'm not really like a very materialistic person. Like with like clothes and records, I've always like passed it on kind of thing. And then you get new stuff and you kind of pass it on, or you like exchange with people. Like I've purchased and like passed on like a bunch of albums and repurchased. And, I think there's nothing like I kind of like got my hands on and was like, I'm going to keep this in
okay.
my adolescent milk carton since the day I was born. Like my first punk albums, I could say, was like Gen X, Billy Bragg, Back to Basics, which really inspired me for the acoustic oi stuff, and
Hmm.
London Calling, which I really didn't understand when I got it. And then I also really didn't understand Sandinista, but it's like
Yeah, I
mustard.
understand
You
what
know
you're
what I mean?
saying. Yeah.
It's like mustard. Nobody likes it when you're young, and then you get older and you're like, hey, this is tasty.
Uh huh. I heard a couple
So,
songs off of it recently again, and I was like, oh wow, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it took me like a while, and now I'm just like, I always listen to the Mescaleros before I go to bed. It's like a ritual.
Oh
And
yeah.
it took me it was like a slow release. My favorite albums, like, I guess, of all time, and I would say, is just like the party pack of just like getting into the core of the music. And this is like no surprise. Blitz, Voice of a Generation, Aspire, Shock Troops. Um, I would say probably The Clash, London Calling, anything from Stiff Little Fingers. And
Yes.
for a last one, I don't know. I would probably choose something by Vice Squad, like Stand Strong, Stand Proud. I just love Becky Bondage. She is like my idol, and I think that she was before her time and has a lot to say that we can all learn from. But also on the other side of that, I really love reggae and ska, and I actually play in a ska band now. Um,
Oh, that's right.
and from all of that, there's like a ton of music that I think is incredibly important for the library of life.
What's the name of the ska band again?
Yeah, it's called the Dive Tones. We're an
Oh, that's right.
80s ska band. And, a lot of people are like, oh, you're a middle-aged woman and you play in a ska band? Cringe. But it's actually a really good ska band and it's like a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're coming out with our debut album this year and it's being mixed by Agent J, who is the guitarist for the Slackers. And it's going to be featuring Vic Ruggiero from the Slackers. And
Nice.
it's, we're on the search for the fourth wave of ska, but it has like a lot of takens from the original and I love every single song on that album. It's just all killer, no filler.
That's great. That's great to hear. Nice. Um, so, I mean, nowadays you can get all your music on the streaming platforms and everything. But I guess you have like where can people get like physical copies of your albums and stuff, or is that harder to go worldwide, ship worldwide, or
Well,
anything?
so you obviously can't put your arms around an MP3. And
Yeah.
of course, I will always advocate vinyl because, I'm a musician. But on that note as well, I really believe that music should be completely accessible. So like any way you want to get it, just get it.
Gotcha.
And it's available like on any streaming platforms. Like there are a few albums that I've written that are not yet on, for example, like a lot of the stuff I did with the choices and like a lot of the original like Jenny Wu Oi Project stuff. It's not on any streaming platform. That was like the record label's choice. But if you want to get physical copies, the record label is Randali, and their website's randalishop.com. And they're based in southern Germany, and they have a lot of bands on the label, like Cockspur, and like it's a kind of hub of like modern oi music. So I would recommend them, but it's also available through like a lot of distros, like Cortex Records or like Oi the Shop, and like it's there's a lot of like exchange with Longshot and stuff, so there's like American distribution. But yeah, I mean, just tap it into Google. But
Yeah.
if you want to support the record label, I should say that because this is a publicity thing.
Yeah.
You should go to the rondallyshop.com and put it in your cart.
There we go. There we go. Um, so the dive tones is your current stuff. You're still doing choices stuff, and then One Tribe you just released. So you're just planning on touring. What's next, really?
So, for the One Tribe, I mean, I'm touring. Like, I have guys in a band that I play with. I have like a Canadian-based band, and then I also have a band based in West Coast of the States. So, coming up next month, and in March, we're doing like a lot of dates in like California, Nevada, and then in March, April, May, I'm going to be doing like a lot of gigs, like with my own oi band, like in Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, like kind of area.
Okay.
And in the summer I'll be doing like some European dates, but with the choices we have a lot of European dates in August and onwards. And with the dive tones, like we're just like open to anything. So like if you guys want us to play your bat mitzvah or your birthday party or like whatever, just DM me.
Yeah.
We're down.
Nice.
But we're 8 people, so you have to have a lot of food.
Yeah. 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 And sleeping arrangements, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a few amongst us who snore like hell, so
Yeah.
segregated sleeping spaces preferred.
Um, I think we pretty much covered most of it. Is there anything else you have that you'd like to add? I do want to say that touching on the topics we touched on was a pleasure. It definitely needs to be talked about more out there, especially when you're out at shows with people. But yeah, so
Well, I want to say thanks a lot. I really appreciate that you reached out to me and that you gave me this opportunity to talk about things that are really close to my heart. I think that in this life, one of the questions, like not to pull the cat out of the bag, but Elliot sent me like a list of like themes and questions before the podcast so that I would have time to meditate on them. And one of them was, what is the reason you create?
oh
I
yes,
think that in this life, we are all like unique, important people, and we all have something that we can contribute to our community and to this planet that nobody else can. And that's a fact. Unfortunately, with the mundanity of like existence, a lot of that gets erased. Like, you go to work and someone's like giving you a performance plan, like, oh, Jennifer met her work objectives and filled this spreadsheet really well. That doesn't really give you that feeling of like, yes, I contributed and fulfilled my unique destiny, you know? Why I create is because when you bring something new to this world, like whether it's music or whether it's a relationship or whether it's a conversation like we're having now, that is a unique fingerprint that you can leave behind. And I don't want to sound like, too Freudian here in terms of like being motivated by sex or death or something like that. But like, I really think that creation is the way and the path to revolution, because without new things, we can't overcome the past. And I think my greatest creation yet has been my children. And I love my music and I always will. A lot of my current energy is spent on being a parent now, just because I think that in my youth, I really wanted to create and to be something important for everybody. And through time and wisdom, I've realized that when you try to create something for everybody, it's for no one in particular. And probably the best thing to do is to be not somebody for everybody, but somebody for someone. I want to be there for my kids. And I really hope that whatever I do in this life, they'll remember that their mom is a musician.
That's wonderful. I like to say that each one of us is a story to be remembered. And that is
Yeah,
why I started this podcast. And I feel that very much.
I love it.
Sounds
Well,
good.
respect. Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to maybe meeting you one day.
Yes, definitely.